Hello, everybody. As you can see, I have some problems with fault tolerance. But let's hope the presentation won't have any. So let's talk Ecto. What is happening? Still not working.
Can you take your cell phone?
Yeah.
Can you give me your cell phone? Oh, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, we're good now. So let's talk a little bit about Ecto. I think Ecto is one of the biggest Elixir projects. It has over 3,000 commits and almost 200 contributors. And I think it's really cool to see such a big project. Also, if you look at hacks, Ecto has almost 800,000 downloads. As you can see, it's like 4,000 downloads a day now. So it's also growing like really fast. So that's Ecto, the past, the present, the future. I tried to tell you shortly about how Ecto looked like, what's going on right now, and maybe what will go on in the future. So I'm Michał Muskała. You can find me on the internet as Michał Muskała because I'm not very good at naming. So yeah, I work with great people at Media, and I'm also a student at Silesian University of Technology. And I got into Elixir through Google Summer of Code last year. So I worked on Ecto, and especially on bringing MongoDB to Ecto, and trying to marry this SQL library, which Ecto was back then, with NoSQL stuff like Mongo, and also leverage additional features like JSONB in Postgres. And I think it was a success. The MongoDB adapter is there, and there are people that are using it. So I have some questions for you. Andrea tested yesterday that you can raise your hands, so there shouldn't be any problems with it. So is there anyone using Ecto? Great. It's great to see that. And is there anyone using the MongoDB adapter? Oh, also a couple of people. You should talk to me later. And the Ecto 2.0 dash whatever right now. Great. So let's talk a little bit about Ecto history. So that's Ecto version 0.1 that was released over 2 years ago. But you can see it's not that different from what we have right now. So if that was released 2 years ago, what was happening for 2 years? If that's so similar. So I have a couple questions for you with basic features. And you can tell me what version do you think they landed in. And you can choose from 0.1 until 0.15 that immediately followed the stable release. So fragments, what do you think? Shout out. Was it early or was it later? So fragments were 0.3, so pretty much early. And map type? 0.7. Yeah, this was one of the later additions with 0.13. And associations. Could you imagine Ecto without associations? And actually, they weren't there since the beginning. The changesets. Could you imagine Ecto without changesets? And it was only 0.5 that arrived there. You could see before this was the validates macro that were creating functions for you, and changesets arrived later. And timestamps, they were also quite late. The Ecto type thing arrived together with changesets. The embeds were one of the last additions. And MySQL support was around it's almost, I think, a year now that we have it. So where does Ecto come from? And the more recent features, where they come from? I think everybody from you heard that the keyword syntax and the query syntax in Ecto comes from LINQ in C#. And that's true. But while while like Eric with Jose back then took the ideas from there, they also expanded on it. So we not only have like the keyword syntax for query, but we also get the pipeline syntax. And that was recently also like simplified, that you don't have to bind the variables right now. So you can do just say like where foo equals bar. So yeah, what allowed Ecto to like marry this world of SQL with NoSQL? And I think there are a couple factors. For starters, is that Ecto is built on this idea of adapters for databases. So until you pass your queries or your structs to repo, they are completely database unaware. It's only when you pass the query to repo that it is translated to either SQL or like MongoDB queries or something else. And it allows for great flexibility and allows for like changing stuff how you'd like. Also, like even if I told you we have like 3 query syntaxes, they're all compiled to the same stuff. So the adapter only ever sees one syntax, which also helps. And the interfaces are really clean for the adapters. I think they are poorly documented, but they are really clean because there are, I think, only 6 or 7 functions that like the basic adapter has to implement in order to work with queries and with like inserting and updating stuff. So yeah, Ecto 1.0 arrived in August last year, and it was mainly about API stability. So it was saying like, we think this software is solid and that you can use it safely in production and it won't break underneath you. And so there weren't many like additions or new features, but this was a very important milestone in the project to say like, we think this is solid and you can use it. Ecto 1.1 introduced many changes. Many enhancements and some deprecations, especially like the most important thing I think was deprecating callbacks and renaming Ecto schema to Ecto model to Ecto schema, and I will expand on this a little bit later. There were also some performance improvements and like enhancement in like some additional functions. So 2.0, where you can see that there's a question mark there, because we're like working on it, and I can't promise you any like date for release. I can though say that probably like if we keep the current rate of releases, like we can release like Ecto RC 2145 in mid to 2025. So yeah, you can expect that. But let's see what are the features looking like, which we are introducing. So a huge part of Ecto 2.0 is the DB connection library. Andrea was talking yesterday about the connection library, and DB connection builds on top of it. It gives you like the generic stuff that all databases need, like pooling connections, also transactions, the test pool, that allows for concurrent tests that I will also explain a little bit later. So it's a great library, also made in huge part by James Fish. And I think if you look at like any part of Elixir, if there's like an OTP heavy stuff, it's him who either did it or had a huge part in it. So yeah, it's really great. So Ecto 2.0 also supports subqueries. It might seem like it looks really easy, but there's actually, you have to do a lot of stuff around extracting the real model underneath to maintain proper typecasting and stuff like that. But I think that's the subqueries will give you more power, especially around like doing aggregations. So there's a new function called repo.aggregate that allows you to pass the query and calculate an average of a column or account something in a very like succinct way. Another thing is many-to-many support, which was also like long expected, and I think it's a very important feature. it's great that it has such a short name and not like something like has and belongs to. Yeah. And what I was saying in the beginning about DB connection, it allows for Ecto with Postgres to have concurrent transactional tests. So how it works is basically that before you could have like only one connection to the database for your entire test suite, and all the tests were running sequentially. But right now we have this ownership mechanism that allows a process to say like, this connection belongs to me, and I can give access to it for other processes. So you can still have the tests that are using test things that use multiple processes, but doing concurrently. You can get into like problems with deadlocks in your code if you're running two transactions that are updating the same stuff. But I'd say that's a good thing that you can catch this in tests, because it would probably show up sooner or later in your production code anyway. So yeah, this is a great feature that will enable your test to run much faster. And it's very easy change. So you basically have to change like code in two places at async true to your test cases, and it will run concurrently, which is so nice, and it's really speeds up the tests. And I think faster tests are very important. So also Ecto 2.0 enables parallel preloads by default. We had parallel preloads since 1.1. So this feature basically says if you fetch like a list of comments or blog posts, and then want to fetch authors for each of them and maybe comments. So if you do this sequentially, you go first to fetch like the post, then all the authors, then all the comments. But we can do better. We can fetch all the posts and calculate what authors we need to fetch and what comments we need to fetch, and do this at the same time concurrently. And this feature was present since Ecto 1.1, but now it will be turned on by default. So it should also speed up your applications. Also, we got like easier associations. Before we only allowed, we didn't allow you to pass belongs to associations to work with belongs to associations with change sets. So this is no longer true. You can build your entire like tree of schemas and structs and stuff like that and pass it to repo insert, and it will figure out how to insert everything in the right order and write it, and you'll get everything in one go. So it's very nice for testing, because you don't have to rely on some like external tools that do like insert this model, then this, then this, then this. You can do this all in one go very easily. And yeah, there are no callbacks. It's a like process we were getting at since 1.1. So many things that were callbacks actually turned out that you can do them with change sets. So an example of that is optimistic locking. Instead of having a callback that like increases the lock, you can have the lock number. You can have it on the change set and just like increase put a change with an increased lock. And it should like, it's very also like easy, and it's not global, so you can choose which, maybe you have some like operations that don't need locking and others that do. And it's great that you're having this flexibility. And as I said, the Ecto model was renamed to Ecto Schema. This may seem like a superficial change only in naming, but it has like profound basis in terms of what we want you to do with this. We want you to move away from thinking about Ecto as the model of your application, but rather as the like data layer that you build your models on top of it. I will talk about this a little bit later too, but that's the main idea behind this renaming. Yeah, there are also some simplifications in change sets. Like before the function, the cast function, at 1.0, it was responsible for casting, validating which fields are required, and working with associations. So 1.1 removed associations and gave you like put embed and cast embed. And 2.0 removes the required validation. So you have a separate function called validate required. And I think it's a good move because we're like separating things out. So each function has one purpose. And we got Ecto.Multi, which is this idea of like changesets allows you to encode in a data structure. How are you going to modify your data? Multi is a similar idea that allows you to encode in a data structure. How are you going to modify multiple things? How are you going to encode your entire database transaction? So here we have a simple like example with like a user manager module, and you have like a password reset flow. So you will notice that we have like the repo stuff and all of this wrapped inside this module. So from the outside, you don't see ever that it's using Ecto, for example. It could be anything. And it's like loading the account, creating the multi, and passing it to transaction, and getting all the results, and then doing something like sending emails with the reset code or SMS with some like token. And that's basically how you do things like after commit with Ecto 2.0. So you drop it in your own function and do it yourself. It's a little bit more code, but I like how it's explicit, and also it's not like it's an opt-in thing, not that you are always going to do this callbacks, but you need to explicitly opt in that you're going to send the notifications. And if you have some place that doesn't need to do it, like for example, like in testing, maybe you don't want to send real emails. I did that. So you can skip it. So let's look how you build a multi. So you basically have a very similar interface to repo. So the two things on top of are change sets. So we create change set for updating the account. We create a change set for like a log entry that someone asked to reset the password. So we say we're going to update the account. We're going to insert the log. And we're going to delete all the sessions because like you have to log in once again after you change the password. And it's not executed right now. It's just a data structure that you can inspect, that you can look into what is it going to do, which allows you to very easily test it without actually running it, which will be, I know we got like the concurrent test that hit the DB, but if you don't hit the DB, it's even like faster. It's even better. You can check more edge cases like that. And so you'll see that this function is made public, but with doc false. That's exactly because you don't want it to be used in your application, like floating around, but you want to test it. You could put it in a separate module, for example. But yeah, like having a module with a single function, that makes no sense. So you can make it or just mark it with doc false. That's like, I think it's like universal in Elixir to say like, yeah, it's public, but don't use it outside if you don't know what you're doing. So yeah. So Ecto, like since I think like always has this ability to do schemaless queries. And I think it's not used enough. So what do I mean by schemaless queries is that you can, instead of using a schema module, you can use string that represents your table name. And you can build your queries without like defining modules and schemas. And I think it's really powerful if you want to work with raw data and you don't want to like structure everything, define modules and stuff like that. If you're going to do something really quickly, for example, in migrations, it's great because you don't want to use your models in migrations because they may change, but you still want to like update the data and change it. So that's a great way to do it. You're not coupling yourself to any modules. Yeah, and you get a map back, so you're able to work with like raw data. And Ecto 2.0 introduces the insert all additional command, so you can like insert data into the database without schemas, update it and delete it. So you can do like everything you can do with schemas, you can also do without them. So you can see like we're trying to be less opinionated and allow you to get more flexibility in your applications. If you don't want to use it, like don't do it. Yeah, you don't need to use schemas to query the data. You can work with raw data with just like the database. And related to this is this idea of having multiple schemas with a single table. So what would be an example use case of this? Imagine you have like the user model that is really huge. Like you have all these fields for various stuff, but you don't want to get all those fields from the database each time. So what you could do is like use like the select to limit the fields you want to get from the database each time. Another solution is to have a separate schema that uses the same table but defines only a subset of the fields. And if you use it, it will like get only this subset from the database. So for example, you can have like user invoicing data that will get only the data that's connected to invoicing, or user notification data that will get only the data that's related to notifications like emails and mobiles and stuff like that. Another example of this is that you can have the inverse, and you can have like table-less schemas. So schemas do not have to like be tied to a particular table in the database. So you can use this, for example, to have like validating the data that's arriving at the boundary of your system. So for example, you can like have the request validated immediately after you get it, and then map to some like other structures that you like. It's completely unaware of how you're saving the data later. It's just like validating it, and Ecto works really well with it. This syntax that allows you to define like nested things inline is not there yet, but it's one of the things we want there to get, maybe even before 2.0 or soon after. So as you can see, like this allows you to get things like similar to like form objects or stuff like that, that like that are concerned only with validating the data and not doing anything with it. So you can see like here's an example of like a validate function that returns a tuple at the end. So you can use Ecto changeset apply changes to get the struct back with all the fields filled out if all the validations pass, and if they don't, you return an error tuple with the errors that were recorded in the change set. And I think this is a really powerful idea that allows you to decouple the format that you're speaking with the outside world from your storage inside the application. And also, it's a very recent addition that we also allow you to use change sets without schemas, actually. So what you can do, instead of passing like a struct, you can pass a tuple, where the first element is the data, which is a map, and the second element is like a map of types, of the fields and types. And that's all we need right now to use the change sets. So again, it's about allowing you to be more flexible with what you're accepting. Maybe you don't want to define the whole module for like the registration validation. You can do this very easily, like inline, without defining anything else. But I told you all this thing that allows you to be more flexible, have more code, and like do stuff like that. But we don't want to complicate the basic case. if you have a simple CRUD interface, like do it in 3 lines and be done with it. Like you don't need to have like modules upon modules to work with it. And I think it's my position that we should like keep simple things simple and not complicate them. So you can still use all the things you're used to right now from Ecto and with the change sets and repo, but you also get the ability to like sorry, to go to customize it if you need to. So what's the future? As I said, it's one of the I'm sorry. One of the immediate things is the inline embeds. This will actually define a module for you. Like if you define it like side by side, but you don't have to like write all this additional code. And I think it's really cool. And the other thing that we'll maybe do in the future, but this is something like long term, maybe Ecto 3, is looking at the at Ecto. We have 2 parts of it, like the data manipulation part and the database part. And maybe what we could do is separate them. So have the data manipulation library separate from database library with like queries and adapters and all of that. Because I can see how the change sets and Ecto types could be used for talking to external APIs without actually like using any databases or like validating user inputs without like having databases. And this would allow, you can do this today, but you kind of have to like bring all of the Ecto. So I think it would be a nice idea to look how we could separate those things. And it would also help Ecto internally to define better interfaces between modules, because right now there's a lot of coupling between modules. So if you change like one module, nearly entire Ecto will recompile, and it's really annoying if you're developing some new features, because it takes a long time to do this. So what are I told you about the philosophy, and then we want to change the perspective on Ecto. So this is exactly the points we want you to notice and to take into consideration. That we want to make Ecto data-centric instead of model-centric. So it focuses more on the data, and you can build on top of it. It's less opinionated. It allows you to get more flexibility. And most importantly, Ecto should not be your model. It should be just your data that you use to build your model. And related to that is that Ecto should not be a solution to your problem, right? It should not be like the thing that you use to solve your problem. It should be rather a toolbox of useful things that you can use to build your own solution to your problem that fits your domain, that fits your application, and you should not be tied down by anything. So yeah, that was Ecto, the past, the present, the future. And do you have any questions?
Less opinionated software and more decoupled. What's the world coming to? Questions? Yeah.
Hi, thanks for the talk. One question about select statements in Ecto. That's one thing I'm missing from Ace, when you could call select multiple times. can you just add new columns to the select? Is there a chance it will be possible in Ecto?
Yeah, it could be, but I'm not really sure. Like that's because if you look at SQL, you can only have like one select thing. Yeah, so I think also like you'd have to ask Jose about this. But one of the goals with with Ecto was not to add like additional layers and upon layers of abstractions, and not to try to emulate things that you can't do with database directly, and to stick to the semantics of the database that you're using. So for example, in the Mongo adapter, if we don't have things like joins or group by, we're not trying to emulate them. We're just saying, sorry, you're using Mongo. You're probably aware that you don't have joins, so don't try to use them. And I think it's important. Does this answer your question?
Pretty much.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
The schemaless schema thing, how far along is that, and can you use it right now? Or?
Let me go back. So what you can use right now is like the thing that you can't use is this part, the do and the nested stuff. You can define the embed separately in a separate module and use it today, right now, even with Ecto 1.1 and even maybe with 1.0. So you can use this. The only thing that's missing is this inline syntax.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else?
Are there any plans on the roadmap to sort of have some out-of-the-box multi-tenancy support?
So actually, Ecto has this concept of prefixes. So there's a little bit related to this that you can say that you're using this table with a particular prefix. So in the terms of Postgres, it will be like Postgres schemas. And in terms of, I think, MongoDB, it will use another database. So there are concepts around this. But yeah, I think it may require like more documentation and maybe like more thinking about it. But there are things about this, and if you see like some ways to improve it, it would be great to like hear something, yeah, some ideas.
I have a question about multi. Is it so it's not interact with each other? So for example, if we insert something, would we have like, for example, ID of insert and put it into and use it in the next multi?
So it was merged recently that we allow you to pass a function to insert or update, and this function will receive the map of the changes so far made, and it is expected to return a change set from it. So yes, you can receive like what models you inserted up to this point, extract data from there, and construct a change set later. Yeah.
Do you have or do you plan to have failover inside the integration layer? Let's say if you have multiple database names that go to the same database.
So I have to admit I haven't looked that closely at DB connection, so I can't really answer your question. You can probably ask maybe Eric. I don't know. Yeah, you can ask Eric about this.
So there are no plans for Postgres, but for example, the Mongo driver will have built-in failover. And for the other adapters, I don't think there are plans for it yet, but that's definitely something that we're looking at.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.